What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here, Last Witness, coming to you from the Stream Lab right here above Adorama itself at 42 West 18th Street. So come swing on by if you're in New York. I know Nikon did because they just shoved this in my hands. This is the 85mm F1.2 S for the Z mount, and they even let me try out the 26mm F2.8 for the Z mount. But this one we're going to start with first. This was a long way to lens, right? If you're a Nikon shooter, and especially from the DSLR era with the F mount, there really wasn't a lot of F1.2 out there for the F mount back in the DSLR days, but when the Z mount got announced, 1.2 was on everybody's mind because this was a chance to start over, and it seems like they really pushed it going on forward with the 1.2, with the 50mm that's been out, which is right here, I personally own. Now the 85mm 1.2, and if you're watching this video in the future, I'm sure there's more, right? But let's talk about what is so crazy about this lens to begin with, why we like 85s, and what to really look for when you're looking at the images out of this lens. Well, 85 is one of those lenses that we kind of pigeonhole as portrait, right? 85mm, you want to get that little bit of reach. You want to be able to step back, let your subject feel a little more isolated, get that compression. I know compression is a real thing. Don't get into that. Don't tag me in the comments. I'm not going to answer it. There's a David Bergman video on it. You can go watch that. Anyway, link below. So the 85mm f1.2, while the aperture is nice and wide, right? 1.2 lets a lot of light in, shallow depth of field, and I mean shallow. When I was shooting this thing, it was razor thin, and that's not an easy depth of field to work with, right? But when you're working with it on the Z9, that's staying with the eyes and the IAF and all that kind of stuff, it made it a lot easier than in the past when you were using very shallow depth of field. But the 85 on this isn't just f1.2, it's f1.2 with 11 blade aperture. This is a big deal. A lot of other 85s you're gonna find out there are 9 blades, some lower quality than that, about 7 blades. So what does that mean? Well, when the blades are closing and opening, the amount of them affects how pointy they look. So the less blades mean less round. So the more blades means they can relax and give you more of a round opening for the light to come through. What does this affect? Well, the shape of the out of focus area, the bokeh. Oh God, I know you guys love that word, but it's such a buzzy thing. But yeah, that's kind of a thing that's happening here. So the bokeh, see I said it both ways because I don't care how it's pronounced, looks a certain way because of the shape of that aperture, and because it's rounded from the extra blades, you get a different look, a creamier look, a bit of a smoother transition. That's really what you kind of look at when you look from the sharp point to the out of focus area. It's not just what it looks like overall, but the characteristic of the lens. A lot of people are quick to jump on glass and go, oh, it's super sharp, and that's like all they care about or something like that. But you really have to look at the lenses for their character, the way they make the image look, how organic they feel. And I'm gonna tell you, as someone that leans on a cinematic feel style that I got going on, if you're familiar with my work, yeah, it's kind of doing that, especially when you're watching on a human subject to go from a sharp point transitioning off the body to the background. I'm talking eye to corner of jawline. I'm talking about chin to breastplate. I'm talking about shoulder hitting the back of that neck. When you start seeing those areas in the frame, you start realizing exactly what this lens is doing and the look you're going to get out of it and what type of portraits you're going to be creating to portray the person you've got in front of your lens. So this has a lot of things going on for it, and one of the things I think we honestly heard about it being critiqued when it was announced as a development was, whoa, that looks big. So let's address that, right? This is Nikon absolutely being unapologetic about creating the glass at a standard they want to create. They're not sacrificing things, making it smaller to do certain things. You're looking at focus breathing corrected, meaning that when you're focusing, you're not watching the frame change. This is a big deal for video, big deal for focus stacking, and especially if you're gonna do things at shallow depth of field and then want to put those images together in post for focus stacking, it's a big deal when you have no focus breathing to worry about. And you also realize that this lens, if it doesn't breathe in the lens, it will be that way on anything you mount it to. So in the future, other Z mount things that are out there, if it goes onto other cameras or what other things out there, the lens will act like that. You don't need something in the camera body to do a crop to then compensate for that focus breathing. So it's actually engineered to be top performing glass here. So yeah, I'm really psyched on this. And one of the small things I'm really liking about it is if you're trying to make the 1.2 a set of glass for you, well, the 50mm and the 85mm are the same thread size. So if you're looking to do something with, I don't know, neutral density filters because you are shooting video and you want to use wide open apertures, but you don't want to have to worry about blowing out the ambient light with the shutter speed issue, you have the same size thread. You don't got to buy the same filter over and over again. So for little things like that, quality of things go a long way for me. On this lens, it's very simple. I mean, you got your focus ring, you got your custom control ring, which you can set to like different exposure settings, aperture, exposure compensation, things like that, or ISO. And you've got your lens function button here that you can customize to be whatever you want in that menu as well. If you've had any of the other Z lenses, you know what you can customize on that. But it's pretty standard. Like that's pretty much it. This is like, this lens is awesome. You're getting a great piece of glass, no real bells or whistles here, but you know it's a top performing piece of glass. So today, in this space, I mean a very small square foot of space, I called in my girl Alexandra, and she is very, very striking. And she has this thing about her where she just looks so dynamic, even if she's standing still. Incredible eyes, right? So we did a few setups really, really quickly. Behind me, you see these LEDs. I got some pretty cheap, what do you call these, nets, fairy lights, whatever. Got very low cost. I got 3 of them and I layered them so that they're at different distances and they're just kind of hanging in different shapes. But I want to give you guys what you're probably looking at with this lens with the shallow depth of field, which would be this bokeh, right, with this kind of LED. So if you're in the street and you're looking at street lights, you got that green traffic light going on, you're kind of getting an idea of what this will look like. And that's in this small space. Imagine out there on the street, right? You can see the transition though here. You can see what happens from that sharp, stark, amazing eye of her going into that crazy blown out little tiny LED that looks massive from this 1.2 aperture. And I kept sticking to 1.2 because I wanted to see what this lens would really do. And you're looking at shots that one eye is in, one eye is out of focus. Unless they're in the same exact, I'm saying less than an inch of space distance from your lens, one of them is going to be out of focus. It's just what it is. That's the nature. It's physics. I know. Crazy, we can't defy physics. Ugh, where are we in this industry? But that's kind of the look you're going for if you go and grab a lens like this and shoot it at 1.2. I started doing some cinematic stuff here. I started pointing towards this Arri 150 I got in the sky forever. I've had it in here. Well, I wanted to see what that would look like as a bigger light source ripping through the lens. I threw some atmosphere, you know, the canned fog in there just to give it some sort of like, you know, I don't know, stage type look. And I think it came out pretty well. She looks incredible and I really enjoyed using this lens against this background. But then I was like, I really got to see what this looks like clean, because you're not always going to shoot at f1.2. You're going to close down on your aperture. So what happened was I took down the graffiti wall and I wanted to shoot against this gray paint that we have here in the studio. But when I did that, what's really interesting, and a side note about shooting at 1.2, is when I'm looking through the lens at 1.2, I'm looking at the room light in here. And if you noticed in the first setup with the LEDs, the shadows are getting blue because we had this blue light in the ceiling that we always have on here. If you're watching the live streams from the Streamlab, it was bleeding in because I was able to get it to come in from the settings I was at 1.2. Well, when I moved here, I started seeing all the room light without my strobe in there, and I was like, whoa, I gotta shoot a few frames like this. Underneath lit, reflecting that blue light from the Manfrotto Halo right up into Alexandra's face. It looked a little like uneasy, a little strict, a little whoa. Loved it, shot it, got it, and then I set up the strobe, closed down to f8, got rid of all the ambient light, and we shot very clean black and white. I've always wanted to shoot black and white with her, and what better way to check out this lens and what it really produces beyond 1.2 and then in black and white, where you take away the distraction of color and you really look at what you're getting out of this lens as sharp, as detail, as textures, as the organic feel or inorganic feel if you think it's more sterile looking, right? So that was my 3 setups in this tiny little space, just single light stuff with a reflector, keeping the lighting simple and letting the lens do the heavy lifting for the look of the shot. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. So 3 looks really quick in here. And then we went out in the street because I know what's gonna happen. You're gonna go, that's great in the studio, but I'm gonna be on the street and I wanna see how it obliterates the entire city of New York when I shoot portraits. So yeah, we went outside. It was about to start snowing, so it's a little cold out there. She's doing a parka, and boy, was she selling that parka or what, guys. I mean, we were in that street, completely separating her from the busy New York street scene that was going on just by using the depth of field. Threw a 2-foot Octa at her just to fill her in because it is a very flat sky, very, very black kind of light. But that also allows me the chance to kind of play games with the exposure as far as the ambient, bring it down a little bit, put the strobe in there, make it look a little more stylized, a little more filled in or natural if I wanted to. So some really quick street scenes for you guys to get more of a organic on the fly kind of look to it if you would use it in real life. And that's pretty much what we did with the 85. I guess you guys can get a sense of what this lens gives you as far as a feel and a characteristic from the shots that we did here, which I think we did a lot in a little amount of time and a little amount of space on the fly. And remember, I was just getting to know this lens. I didn't even get a chance to really take it out. I just met it, you know? So I'm really excited to actually get my hands on this again and try it out. But also you have to keep in mind, this is beta firmware. This is pre-release firmware for the lens. It can only get better. It can only get faster, more accurate, all sorts of stuff when this thing is actually released. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the images. Now let's completely switch gears. And I mean really, really switch gears, because on my Z9, I took off the 85 and I put on their new 26mm F2.8 pancake, like for real pancake. And you want to talk about switching gears. From the weight of this lens to this, I was swinging my arm faster. My plane of existence completely changed, when this is really more of a walk around street lens, right? I mean, this lens just doesn't feel like it's there. You're getting a nice wide not wide aperture, but actually 2.8 is pretty wide aperture, but a wide angle look without it being super distorted, which means you get that kind of field of view that you are walking in the street. It's a really nice, easy lens to take with you, throw on a smaller body and just chill, you know, really that's what it is. I would say, and I'm gonna plead, and I don't care how much trouble I get in, this would be amazing if Nikon starts putting out rangefinders one day, you know, like their old rangefinders, but in the Z mount. Look at this. Make it happen. I think, watch, the comments are exploding. Yeah, make it happen. Hope they read that. But the reality is, if I had to put like a feel or something to this lens to kind of tell you what it's about, effortless. Really, it is. I mean, you're using cameras that can spot the faces, you're telling where to focus, it's getting the scene, it's clean, it's sharp, and I'm just gonna throw in there, it feels very well made. Like the housing feels good, the lens mount is metal, not plastic. I know that was a concern when people saw the development announcement, but it's looking pretty good. And not for nothing, it's a lens you can throw in your bag and almost not worry if it's there or not, because you'll always have it, because it takes up no space, so you know it's there, you know? And let's not forget our video guys, right? Gimbal, hello? Yeah, I would just throw this on a small body and just easy to balance and you're good to go. So I think there's a lot to be said for this. Oh, live streaming. I would totally use it for streaming. You know, small setups, if you're putting a camera on like some type of arm that isn't able to handle a lot of weight, you got a nice wide angle lens to get your room while you're doing like a Twitch stream, and still have 2.8 to blow out that background a little bit softer, keep you sharper, and you don't have to use as much intense light in your face while you're streaming for a few hours, because if you stream, you totally know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that was a lot. I talk a lot. You guys know this. If you guys have any questions for me about using the 85mm F1.2 S for the Z mount or the 26mm F2.8 for the Z mount, let me know in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer with my limited experience here, but so far I'm just gonna say I think they're both awesome. Don't forget to hit like. That really helps out this video and this channel. So if you guys have learned anything in this channel, just hit like. It's free, it's easy, do it please. And don't forget to subscribe and the bell to get notified when we put up more videos like this. There's always more gear coming out, and you know we're gonna be dropping more videos for it, so please join us there. My name is Seth Miranda, last ex-witness on all social, and I will see you next time. Later.